cold hiss on the line. Then a laugh. Not the kind that comes from a happy man. The kind that comes from a man auditioning peace on a stream while his own mouth keeps betraying him. Jonathan Porter, the world calls him Blueface, sat down this week, hit that record button, and did the exact thing every man swears he'd never do when he supposedly moved on. He said her name, and then he said it again, and then again. Jonathan said Jaden like it was stuck in his teeth. If you weren't watching, if you were only listening, really listening, you heard the crack under the swagger. Y'all felt that too, right? Or was it just me picking that up? Now, before I take you deeper into this hexagon of chaos, because what's coming next is combustible, and I need every one of you locked in. Smack Jaden Alexis at the northeast corner, holding the mother of two claim, and, per her own words, armed security. Krisian Rock at the southwest, tour adjacent, drifting back into Jonathan's orbit through a Miami weekend. Nevaeh Kyra Junot pregnant, allegedly the reset. Anyway, here's the thing. For anybody who missed it, Jonathan came home in mid-2025 after time tied to gun-related charges. XXL's release window coverage laid the timeline out plain. That wasn't a soft return. That was a full rebrand attempt. New videos, new couple content with Nevaeh, new address flashed on camera, grown man cosplay all up in the frame. And in this industry, when a rebrand runs parallel to an unresolved co-parent situation, one of two things happens. The artist quietly absorbs the past and keeps moving, or the past leaks through the seams of the new story. Guess which one we're watching? Let's crack open the vault. Straight from the stream, transcribed by fans in real time. Jonathan, on camera, said this, quote, "For real chat, I swear I don't want to be in." He let strangers vote on the mother of his own children like it was a Twitch subathon. According to the Shade Room's rolling coverage of Jonathan's co-parent saga, this is not the first time Blueface has turned a private grievance into an audience participation event. But it might be the coldest packaging yet. And here is the piece that makes the poll worse the longer you sit with it. The word circus. That is not throwaway vocabulary. That is the same word Jonathan has been using since his 2023 Blue Girls Club era, archived across the Shade Room, to describe the roster of women he keeps in. When somebody wants a public record, they post. Jaden posted. And Carlis's reply, "I will destroy America about mine." Read that one slow too. About mine. Possessive. Not about my grandson. Not about Krisian Jr. Mine. That is a grandmother speaking from the register that does not care about optics, does not care about the algorithm, does not care that Jonathan is the shared thread connecting the whole table. That is the register that walks into a courtroom and does not blink. And when two mothers are speaking from that register inside the same 48-hour window, the man they are both orbiting is no longer directing the story. One word from the chat. Yikes. And then Blueface, laughing, but not really laughing, allegedly told the room, per clips circulating on Hot New Hip Hop, quote, "You think I'm going to any birthday party where you popping talking crazy about how much security you gonna have? I was never going." Reportedly, because we have watched this specific man change his position between the pre-roll and the outro before. I was never going. Hold that phrase in your palm for a second. Because the tell is not the content. The tell is the tense. Not I'm not going. Not I decided not to go. Never going. Past perfect denial. That is a man retroactively rewriting his own calendar in real time so that when the day comes and Jonathan is not there, the absence looks planned instead of chosen. That is not petty. That is tactical. That is the same construction politicians use when they say, "I was never in that meeting." The word never is doing all the lifting. And it is lifting because it has to. The quotes are the skeleton. Now watch the joints move. The Bravo tape. The one where Jonathan claims Jaden crept with his former manager, the manager buddy allegedly sent to him. That tape dropped weeks before this stream. That is the wound. Everything since is scar tissue trying to look like new skin. Miami with Krisian happens next. Then the runaway to an island pitch Krisian reportedly floated on her own live. Then Nevaeh's pregnancy timeline tightens. August 24th due date, per Nevaeh's own caption countdowns. Then the name flip. Solar becomes Jonathan Jr. Then Journey's birthday enters the calendar. Then the security threat. Then the poll. Look at that sequence. Read it slow. Every escalation on Jaden's side lines up with a milestone. According to All Hip Hop's livestream recap, Jonathan told viewers the pivot came from Nevaeh. She wanted to name him Solar. I think Solar sounds better. Then one doctor's appointment later, it is Junior. A man does not plant a flag on new soil unless he is trying to bury the old map. And notice how Blueface framed the switch on camera. He made it sound like Nevaeh's preference, then his preference, then a we decided. That is the linguistic three-card Monty. Watch the hands. When a man moves a decision through three attribution stages inside a single anecdote, the decision was his the whole time, and he is just workshopping who gets the credit. Nevaeh may love the name. That is not the question. The question is whether the name arrived through Nevaeh's mouth or through Jonathan's. And the way the story keeps mutating on stream suggests the answer is not as domestic as Blueface wants it to sound. Real talk. That is the part that sat with me all night. Because Junior is not just a name. In American black family tradition, Junior is a status designation. Junior anoints an heir. Junior draws a hierarchical line through the sibling group and puts one child at the top of the paternal branch. And Jonathan already has children, including a son, which means the choice to make baby number 4 the Junior is a choice, not an accident. And it will land with weight the other children in the family will feel for the rest of their lives. Every family therapist working the celebrity co-parent circuit will tell you the same thing. Name hierarchy inside a blended family is one of the loudest silent messages a parent can transmit. And Blueface is transmitting this one on livestream. Zoom in tighter. One clause. One sentence Jonathan uttered on that same broadcast. Quote, "Loyalty is not based off you cheating or not. It's based off of how you react when you're caught cheating." Read it again. That is not philosophy. That is a permission slip Jonathan wrote for himself, notarized on his own broadcast, filed under for future use. A man who defines loyalty as post-cheat honesty is a man building a legal defense in advance. And pause on the audience for that sentence. Jonathan did not say it to a journalist. Jonathan did not say it to a therapist. Blueface said it to a live chat. A chat that included fans, exes, mothers of his children, potentially their attorneys, and any journalist. The Shade Room framed the same footage as pattern evidence. Jonathan orbiting his past while broadcasting his future. And the current is the only thing paying rent for half the roster. Now, the loudest countertake in the chat is simply, Jonathan has moved on. She's the one who can't let go. And I hear you. So let me steelman it. Because I owe the argument its best shot. Blueface is engaged in what looks like domestic life construction. Nursery. Name change. Doctor visits. New address. New woman. On paper, that is the behavior of a man exiting. There is a version of this where Jonathan is doing the internal work, imperfectly, publicly, because his life is public. A version where the poll was a bad joke he would take back. A version where circus is a defense mechanism from a man who watched his family become tabloid inventory. A version where the stream rants are pressure release valves and not tactical broadcasts. And the whole chess game red collapses because Jonathan is not playing chess. He is tired, angry, on camera, and human. I hold that version. I weigh it. I put it down. Because it does not survive the sequencing. Here is where the paper burns. A man who is exiting does not hold polls about the person he is exiting from. A man who is exiting does not repeat her name on a single stream 40+ times inside 90 minutes. That is a complex transcript tally, not my count. A man who is exiting does not say, quote, "She turned out to be a different person than what you thought," unquote, like he is still auditing the receipts. That is not exit. That is excavation. And 40+ mentions in 90 minutes is a rate. Almost one Jaden every 2 minutes. That is not incidental reference. That is a fixation cadence. Broadcast is the verb of art for what Jonathan is doing. Involuntary anchoring. When a host cannot stop returning to a specific topic no matter what the audience steers toward, the topic anchors the show whether the host wants it to or not. Every stream Blueface runs right now is anchored by Jaden. She is not a subject. She is the gravity. And no amount of Nevaeh footage on the timeline changes what the audio is doing on the microphone. Zoom in on one more sonic detail before we move on, because this one matters. When Jonathan says Nevaeh, Blueface says the whole name. Nevaeh. 3 syllables, full articulation, tender enunciation. When Jonathan says Jaden, Blueface clips it. Jaden. 2 syllables, front-loaded, exhaled fast, like Jonathan wants the word out of his mouth before the room catches the weight of it. That is not accident. That is the phonetic register of a man protecting one name and disposing of another. Any voice coach in Los Angeles will tell you the same thing. A speaker's mouth reveals hierarchy before the speaker's mouth even knows it is doing it. And Jonathan's mouth is telling on Jonathan every single sentence. Gear shift. Because the surface read of this thing is that it is just messy. And messy is easy to sell. And easy to sell is where the truth normally gets buried. Here is what nobody in the audience, the live chat, the clip re-uploaders, the reaction channels, is doing the temperature check for him, whether they realize it or not. The Bravo tape wasn't just a betrayal receipt. In the courtroom of public opinion, the Bravo tape is a doubt manufacturer. Every time that clip resurfaces, it replants the seed that Jaden's fidelity carries an asterisk. And every asterisk on a woman's fidelity in this specific man's playbook has historically preceded a paternity comment. That is not conspiracy. That is pattern recognition. Vibe documented in earlier chapter of the Porter House under Child and Family Services review. The paperwork trail on this family is thicker than the headlines suggest. And thicker than the headlines suggest is doing real work in that sentence. Because for every viral clip, there is a corresponding administrative file most viewers never see. Welfare check reports, custody filings, protective order motions, financial disclosures. Family court paperwork rarely leaks the way tabloid audio does, but it lives permanently in the record. And when a case eventually moves into custody adjudication, judges do not watch the streams. They read the filings. Jonathan is currently building a live stream corpus that a family court judge will one day read as evidence of temperament. Every sacrilegious line, every poll, every ultimatum framed as a joke, all admissible in the way state of mind is admissible. Streams do not dissipate. Screen recordings live forever. That corpus is being built in real time. And the poll, the one where Blueface asked chat to vote on the dumbest in the circus, that was not cruelty for cruelty's sake. That was a jury pool test. Jonathan was measuring which mother the public will side with when the harder questions come. Whichever way that vote tilted, that is the mother Blueface moves against first. That is not projection. That is the mechanics of a man who is already lawyered up in his own head. And notice how sophisticated the audience testing has become across the culture. This is not a Blueface invention. Reality TV producers have polled emotional beats since the mid-2000s. Politicians have used push polls to normalize positions before formal announcements. What is new here is the collapse of distance between operator and audience. No producer, no consultant, no comms firm. Just Jonathan in a room with a microphone and a chat. And the chat responds in real time. And Blueface adjusts in real time. That compression of the feedback loop is what makes this era different. And it is what makes the poll about the dumbest mother read less like a rant and more like a focus group. Jaden's armed security line. That is the pretext Jonathan needed. Because now, legally, narratively, publicly, Blueface can frame every future absence from his children's milestones as her fault. She threatened violence at a kid's party is the cleanest custody narrative gift a man in Jonathan's position could receive. And whether Jaden meant it as bravado or as a real perimeter, Blueface is going to spend the next 6 months quoting that line like scripture. Watch for the specific construction Jonathan will use. It will not be, she said she'd have security. It will be, she threatened armed security at a child's birthday party. The word threatened is the linchpin. It transforms a defensive statement into an offensive act. It is the same reframing move used in every high-profile custody case where one parent is trying to establish the other as unstable. Not at a family gathering. At a child's birthday party. Every modifier chosen for maximum narrative weight. And once Jonathan has used the phrasing publicly 2 or 3 times, the phrasing becomes the accepted shorthand. In the original context of Jaden's post, the used to be cool baby mama preamble, the specific don't show up audience, gets stripped clean out. The Miami trip fits here too. Not as reconciliation, as distraction geometry. While the internet argues whether Blueface is back with Krazian, nobody is asking the harder question. Why did the reunion happen the same week Jaden's threat went public? Wrap-Up noted the calendar collision without connecting it. We are connecting it. And take Krazian's arc seriously for a beat. Because Krazian is not a prop. Krazian is a person with a career. Complex and XXL have both tracked her post-baddie trajectory as one of the most volatile solo runs in current rap. Tour dates, 1 week. Viral live cry the next. Sobriety references, Motherhood references, business references. Chrisian is running her own reset, which means when Chrisian and Jonathan share a Miami frame in a tour week, both of them get something out of it. Blueface gets diversion. Chrisian gets nostalgia currency. The audience gets confused, and confused audiences click more. Everybody wins the wrong things. And the Carlisa angle, the grandmother throwing shots at Jaden, that is not a family member speaking out of turn. That is the same PR strategy from a different mouth. Carlisa reportedly clocking Jaden creates a second front narrative. Two mothers, two grievances. One man positioned as the reasonable center. Center of the room framing is the oldest crisis comms move in the manual. And this family runs it like a system. Let me be careful. I am not saying Carlisa is being directed. I am not saying she is coordinating. There is no evidence for that, and I refuse to pretend there is. What I am saying is that the effect of Carlisa's intervention, whether she intends it or not, is a classic center-of-the-room move. And you do not need coordination to run a coordinated-looking play. You just need enough grievance inside the family system to produce the play organically. That is what makes the Porterhouse so hard to untangle. Everybody has real reasons. And those real reasons happen to align in ways that keep positioning Jonathan as the calm middle even when Blueface is the source of the noise. Watch how the name change on baby number 4 calcifies. Once Jonathan Jr. lands on the birth certificate, and word is that August due date is close, the legal identity of the paternal heir tilts hard toward the Nevaeh branch. That is not just symbolic. In a house where inheritance, brand equity, and merch splits eventually get argued in front of a judge, whichever child carries the name carries the leverage. Jaden's kids do not get displaced by that, but they do get outmarketed. And in this family's economy, marketing is money. And marketing is money is not a metaphor. It is AP&L, merch drops with children's likenesses, family brand content deals, appearance fees for reality cameos, name image likeness residuals if any of these kids grow up on camera. That is a stack that gets divided along the lines drawn today. And Junior carries an implicit primogeniture inside family brand licensing. Ask anybody who has ever handled merch splits inside a rap family. The child with the father's name does not just inherit the emotion. He inherits the trademark leverage. That is the quiet part. And it is why the name change is the loudest silent move on the entire timeline. The next window, call it the 6-week stretch. Expect Jonathan to skip Journey's party publicly and loudly. Expect to stream the night of. Expect Blueface to say the phrase "I wasn't allowed" at least twice, in that exact passive construction, because passive voice is how you dodge saying "I chose not to." Watch for it. Add 3 more predictions to that window because if we are calling shots, we might as well call them cleanly. 1. Expect a chat clip to circulate inside 72 hours of Journey's party of Jonathan doing something visibly domestic with Nevaeh. A nursery reveal. A couple's cook. A car confessional. Time to override whatever footage or fallout comes out of the party. 2. Expect a Chrisian reappearance within the same window. Either a joint clip, a tour shout-out, or a "we are just friends" clarification. Because Chrisian is the reliable weather system that reorganizes the timeline every time the Jaden front runs too hot. 3. Expect at least one outlet, most likely the Shade Room, because their common engagement metrics reward this exact beat, to run a sources close to Blueface piece that repositions Jonathan as the wrong party. Whether the sources are real or manufactured doesn't matter for the framing. What matters is the piece exists and can be quoted. Don't be shocked when the paternity question, the one Jonathan has been previewing in the hypothetical, gets floated in a poll. Not a statement. A poll. That is how Blueface tests waters. If chat cosigns, the DNA conversation becomes a curiosity. If chat pushes back, Jonathan retreats and calls it a joke. Either way, the idea is now in the bloodstream. And once an idea is in the bloodstream, it does not leave. That is the ugly truth about doubt planting in the social media era. A statement can be retracted. A denial can be issued. A statement can be sued over. But a question, a just asking questions question, posed sideways, wrapped in a laugh, that lives in the algorithm forever. Comment threads keep it alive. Reaction videos keep it alive. Reddit keeps it alive. Every kid these children ever go to school with will have seen the question. That is the harm ledger nobody is tallying yet. And it is the ledger that lasts the longest. Now, the table flipper. Because there is a version where Jaden detonates first. The armed security line was not a bluff. That was a woman broadcasting she is done negotiating. If Jaden drops her own receipts, texts, timestamps, financial records, before Jonathan can control the story, the whole circus framing collapses. And Jaden has the receipts. Everybody outside that relationship knows Jaden has the receipts. The only question is whether she uses them or holds them for a courtroom. Hold them. Jonathan wins the internet, loses the paper trail. Use them. The narrative flips inside 48 hours and Nevaeh becomes the woman standing next to a man whose past just detonated in public. Watch Jaden's story cadence for the next 2 weeks. Silence means lawyers. Noise means it is already leaking. And there is a third option almost nobody is mapping. The partial release. That is where Jaden does not drop the whole file, does not stay silent, but leaks in fragments. A screenshot with a redacted timestamp. A quote without a name attached. A voice memo shared with a friend who accidentally reposts it. The partial release is the most dangerous option for Jonathan, because it cannot be answered cleanly. Every denial has to name a specific claim, and every specific claim invites the next fragment. Women in high-profile co-parent disputes have used partial release strategies effectively for decades. Jaden has watched enough of them play out to know the pattern. If we see the first fragment inside 10 days of the security line, the strategy is on. If we do not, Jaden is either holding for court or preparing something larger. 5 years from now, this is the residue nobody is naming yet. The cultural pattern this cements is worse than the beef itself. A generation of viewers watched a father crowdsource which mother of his children is the dumbest. That clip is going to outlive the drama. It will get pulled into custody discourse, into masculinity discourse, into the archive of how not to co-parent in public. Jonathan is building a career and burning a legacy inside the same broadcast. And Blueface cannot hear the smoke alarm because chat is too loud. And think about the receiving end of that clip 5 years out. The children. Because livestream audio is not something a kid can shield themselves from once they hit an age where the group chat becomes the schoolyard. Every family therapist working celebrity kids in Los Angeles has been saying the same thing in interviews going back a decade. The clips their parents lofted on stream are the clips the kids find at 13, in a bathroom, on a phone that does not belong to them. The half-life of a live stream insult is longer than the half-life of the relationship it came from. Jonathan may reconcile with Jaden, or Jonathan may not. Either way, the poll clip is on the internet forever, and the children are on the internet forever, and eventually those two facts meet. That meeting is the receipt nobody in this cycle is pricing in. Once the baby arrives and the name is legally locked, the Crazian in Miami chapter gets rewritten as closure tour. The industry will help Jonathan rewrite it. That is what the industry does. And the industry rewrite has a specific shape, so let's name it now, so you can spot it when it shows up. Step 1. A self-launch feature interview, probably XXL or Hip Hop DX, where Blueface describes the Crazian chapter as growth and the Jaden chapter as a lesson. Step 2. A lifestyle-adjacent piece, Hollywood Unlocked is the likely landing spot, where Nevaeh gets profiled as the woman who finally brought Jonathan peace. Step 3. A joint appearance, probably a podcast, where Blueface and Nevaeh field pre-vetted questions about family, faith, and future plans, and nobody in the interview chair asks about the poll, the security line, or the Bravo tape. Step 4. And this is the giveaway. A merch drop or brand deal time to the release of the family content. Because in this business, healing is a product line. If we see even 3 of those 4 steps inside 12 months, the rewrite is complete and the story you are watching today is officially archived under old drama. We will be right here when it does. Now, real talk, no chaser. Whose side are you on when the smoke clears? Do you think Jaden detonates first, drops the receipts, and turns the whole rollout into rubble? Or does Jonathan run the rewrite clean, lock the junior name, and slide into the next chapter with Nevaeh like nothing happened? Or does Carlisa, the grandmother nobody in this cycle is respecting properly, become the one who actually decides how the next 12 months unfold? Drop your read in the comments. I read every one. And if this landed the way I think it landed, mash that like, hit that subscribe, ring that bell. Part 2 is already loading. You are going to want to be in the room when it drops. We out.